welcome. This is Kevin, also known as AWOL, and today I am working on the 11th ornament, which in some ways is a lot easier than some of the past ones, and in some ways it's a lot more difficult. So one of the first things that you might pick up on is the fact that, yes, these are all single-stranded. It's still a 12-string pattern, and I'm still going with the arrowhead. I just picked this kind of a dark red, a bright white, as opposed to like the off whites I tend to use, and a blue that's sort of down the middle. Nothing too fancy, just wanted something kind of creative and fun, and had plenty of string for this. Turns out I didn't need that much string. I took the floss and I put the ends together, cut it, so now it's in half. Put the ends together and then found the other end, cut it, so now it's in quarters, right? So that's like 4 strands each. But those were really, really long, so I took it and cut it again, so I had it down to 1/8, and I put the 4 off into one and 4 off into the other, and did that with each of the 3 colors. So each one of the 2 pieces that come together is simply 3 skeins of floss, and this thing is kind of small enough that was fine. As far as the pattern goes, I'll have that over on my website. You can go check that out. It's a simple arrowhead that kind of flips in the middle of it. Nothing complicated. I think maybe not exactly the most beginner thing, but again, it's not a very hard pattern to actually work out. So, and again, any of these could be kind of done with whatever pattern you want to use, whatever pattern you are most comfortable with. As long as you can get it to, the roughly the right kind of length, it'll be fine. So yeah, I kind of was a little bit nervous kind of going in on this one because of the fact that the way I was going to do it was going to be in my mind, a lot more difficult. And that's why I kind of went with the single stranded as opposed to a double, is because at the end of this, I'm making 2 of the crosses that we've already done before, but I'm sewing them together, right? So I have to actually string some of this stuff onto a needle. Now, at first I tried making a small knot in a loop of floss to try to pull through without having to have that trouble of threading a needle. And that kind of worked at some points, but it was definitely hard. And I just later discovered that it was just easier to just actually thread the needle, pull it through. That turned out to be the thing, except for the fact that, as you may know, I have a little bit of trouble with my eyes. I have to wear some glasses, and trying to thread a needle with poor eyesight is like a nightmare. So I definitely hated some of this, but at the same time, that overall end product, which I'm looking down at, it turned out really, really cool. So this is a little bit shaped like number 4, where there's so many things coming around, but it doesn't bunch it up like that one did. That one kind of had a pumpkin shape to it, where it kind of curves over a lot and you had to kind of pinch it to kind of get it to sit right. This one eliminates that problem by pinching the top of where it came to an end, pinching that up and then sewing it onto the other piece, which, yeah. So I sat around and I tried to dream up how is this even going to work? Long before I ever got the string cut or doing anything else. And I wasn't 100% sure how this whole thing would play out, but it turned out that it wasn't so bad. It's actually towards the end. So I was kind of bouncing back and forth, forward, backward, forward, backward. At the end, I had it sort of inside out as I pulled in the last of them. And turning it the right way around wasn't so bad because I made these bits long. Now, mind you, the length of these is almost the same number of knots I would use on a regular doubled up bracelet, but because it's single floss, it makes it much shorter. And I cut off about 3 rows off the top and the bottom, so it's not as long as that, but it's getting there. It's kind of close. And each one of these, like this little segment that you're watching getting made, took probably almost 40 minutes to make. Like more than 30, maybe not quite 40, but pretty close to. And there's what? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 8 of those. So pretty much I kind of made one of the crosses on one day and then the other cross on the following day, and then had all the fun of trying to put them together, which you'll see a little bit later on. Like that is really a challenge. Like that's really, man, something else. But in the grander scheme of things, I think in some ways this was a little bit easier than some of the other things where, you know, trying to cram stuff into spaces or whatever. This is something that, as long as you can thread a needle, yeah, you'll get through that part just fine. Yeah, I went with 3 colors because it goes into 12 so well. Honestly, could have done anything. I could have gone with, I could have actually have made the 2 different sides different colors and brought them together, which would have had them alternating, which would have been really cool as well. Oh, and I had to, there is no strings coming through or whatever to make the ornament hangable. So I had to use a needle and put a strand of, I ended up using catgut, but I ended up making a strand to kind of just go through it to hang it from, because the top and the bottom of it are like smooth because of the cross-like things that I did. So I thought that's kind of unique and different. It's got like little bumps where the pieces that got like sewn, well, they got knotted into like a little, I don't know how to describe it. You kind of fold it in half, like where the actual V comes down, you fold it in half and you tie the knots to cinch it closed. So that way it's thing. So it makes for some little bumps, but it kind of looks so intentional. It really is really cool. So yeah, this is almost the end of this piece. And then I will show you how I turn it into a cross, which again, like putting these things together is kind of easy. Like it's doing 6 of them that starts to get really kind of weird. But when you just have 2 pieces come together, yeah. Oh, I do actually do some color swapping in here. I'm not sure if it'll show up on the camera very well, but you can see like when I started it, I had the knot around the group towards the end, and then just kind of came down. Now, the reds were pretty evenly used, but the whites were not, and the blues were not. And so at some point, I swapped the one that's been used a lot for the one that wasn't used a lot, in order to make sure that I have plenty of room coming to the end of it, which I'm not 100% sure that I actually needed, but it sort of worked out pretty cool. And yeah, so that's just something, you know, that's obviously that comes with a little bit more knowledge about the knots, like changing things up, but not crazy by any stretch of the imagination. This is just, it might be right here. Yeah. Okay. So see, I took the longer white and just brought it in and did a left and a right, and boom, I'm back on track with a longer string. Again, I'm not 100% sure that was necessary, and it would certainly not have been necessary if I didn't cut the strings quite as short as I did. Like I said, 1/8 of a skein of floss is like a 1/2 meter. Small bracelets, not too big of a deal, but you know, it is a lot shorter than like anything I'm accustomed to working with. So there's the thing for you. So yeah, I basically just show you how I do this for a little bit, and then I flip it around to the other side to show you. But yeah, it's still doing the same exact pattern. You could by right make it interesting by like changing the pattern. Maybe like the two on the that go out east and west are one kind of pattern, and then north and south are a different one. That might be interesting to look at. I kind of like the fact that it's all the same pattern, but just because that's something I like doesn't mean that that's the way it has to be done. So if you want to experiment and try something different with it, that's completely up to you. It's just an idea of something that might actually work out really, really cool. So yeah, I imagine if you do that, then you're probably also going to want to be on the other one to complete it with 4 different patterns. Otherwise, it's going to get kind of weird when you join them together. Because the way that they join together is there's 4 on one side, 4 on the other, and they sort of go down into the cracks of the other ones, right? If that makes sense. You'll see it. We get to that later on. But yeah, so staggering them would kind of get a little bit weird. Just saying. Again, I like the way it turned out. I think this is pretty cool just as is. So I don't recall how far I recorded going into this side here. I didn't think I did this much. But okay. Yeah. I because these are prototypes and I had no idea like exactly how it would look in the end. I went with simple patterns. Again, this is strictly just to kind of get it done. Mind you, most of my videos don't take multitude of days. Like this is like day 3 or 4 of me working on this project. If I did this all the time, we would likely be looking at 1 video per week. And I have so much stuff to show you guys, so many things to do. That's why most of the projects can't be this big all the time. I had to work way ahead, get a lot of things done, so I would have the time to be able to sit down and do this. I don't know if we'll do it again next year. It's a possibility, maybe. I don't know. I would have to come up with some new ideas, or perhaps we re-explore these ones and do a better job now that we've gotten the prototyping kind of out of the way. I don't know. You have to let me know what you guys think. Because I kind of feel like what I've put into this one, these prototypes so far, I've given you guys enough to go off of to be able to make some really intensely fun things. And yeah, I think that, you know, you probably don't need me to like hold your hand to make the pattern exactly right or to do what it is that you're thinking of doing. So hopefully I've taught you that well, you know, but yeah, we'll see. I really thought that I didn't go this far into the whole other part of the pattern. Like, that's cool though. I mean, I'm showing you how it's getting done. And you can see that I'm trying to segment knot, and hopefully that kind of helps you guys to be able to kind of blaze through these patterns quickly. Yeah, I can't say why the arrowhead is probably one of my favorites. Possibly the whole segmenting is easy. The whole color cue to tell you where to change direction and stuff makes it nice. If you end up using one color too much, you can swap it, but for the most part, it uses colors evenly. I really think that like all these are really the bigger reason behind it. The fact I don't have to look at a pattern to know how to do it, that helps. And even like, even though that it's an easy pattern that I enjoy doing it, I've got it broken down into the easiest way. It still took a lot of time. There's a lot of work going into these. None of my ornaments are going to be sold. My intention is I'm going to put them aside and every year just pull them out to decorate the house. My wife likes Christmas and likes decorating a bit. So I've made all of these for her. I might consider making some for the shop. I would have to get some input on that. You guys have to tell me that that's something you'd be interested in. Otherwise, I really kind of think that that's sort of, it's so much work. I can't imagine, like, if you took a regular person, I don't know, an IT support or, you know, any of the other jobs I've ever done, and you took 3 days worth of salary, how much is that? Because that's how, what it takes to make one of these, right? It's going to be more than people are going to want to pay for it. People are going to be like, it's just string, you know, so you tied some knots. But it's more than that, isn't it? It's the time involved that really makes the bigger difference. And so I'm not sure that I'd be you know, into that. And if I can teach you how to do it instead, you can just put the time and the string into it, and then you make an ornament, and that works out too. So you can see we flipped it over, and now I have to do the same thing going down. And judging by how much time I have left, I might actually not have cut out any of this either. But yeah. Yeah, to me, it's almost easier for me to just teach you how to make things and let you put the effort in, and then you see how much it is. If, let's say you're getting into it, and you try and you realize like, oh, this is really hard. I would like to spend some money to have somebody else do it instead. Then yeah, I'm your guy. Just have to negotiate out some kind of reasonable amount. Because, yeah, this would set me back a few days from my regular recording schedule and stuff. I mean, right now, I work 6 days a week. And the only reason I don't work 7 is my wife makes me take a day out to just go walking, clear my head, do that kind of stuff. Otherwise, I probably would keep at it all the time. I find tying knots soothing, and they kind of make me happy. So yeah, but taking a day off gives me time to think about stuff, gave me a chance to think about what I'm going to do for the last ornament of this whole little series. And yeah, I'm kind of actually excited to make that one next. I wanted to finish up this whole video before I get into it, but yeah. Oh, and I did try, so I'm not sure if the camera is picking it up really well, but like that red is a very deep, dark red. I kind of got concerned when I first realized, like, is this looking too like all American with the red, white, and blue? But the red is so dark that I don't think it really does that. But it does make it interesting. It is a lot of fun. Again, I am really happy about the length that I did this in, because when it came time to turn it back right way around, you basically have to kind of squeeze the bigger portions through the opening that you have. And had it been any shorter, I think that would have been a real struggle. And it's not quite as, I don't know how to, like, secure, like, because it goes through with the needle and then gets tied in a knot. Those little square knots are nothing compared to the knots that go into the making it. And so I was really afraid of like damaging it and stuff. Like, this might not be the most machine washable one like some of the other ones are, just because of like, I ran 2 strings at the top and then 2 strings from the bottom in and tied them into a knot in order to make it hold together. And yeah, I'm way less confident about how that holds together than I am about any of the other stuff that we put together here. I still think it's pretty good, but it's not as good. So that is kind of what it is. But yeah, so there are like 2 of this X shape that I'm making here, right? So that's kind of, you know, it after finishing one, there was a whole, oh man, I have to make another. But at the same time, it's like, you know, these aren't that hard. I shouldn't be, you know, whatever. But yeah, so it's making 2 of these. At some point, I have to undo those knots that are on the sides up at the top there. I had to take out those knots, so they were tied very, very loosely, because I need to be able to bring those strings together and kind of pinch it up. So all 8 of those corners get pinched together and made so that way they can join to the other piece. So these 4 go to the other 4, and the other 4 go to these 4. And it goes right down into the corner, like right where the crosses join. That's where these corners all attach. So again, we'll get to that. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm kind of excited because it really turns out cool, guys. I love it. And at the end of all of this pre-recorded stuff, I'm going to actually show you what I've got in my hand. So. Yeah, not too much more to go. I remember thinking to myself, like, I could cut some of this out, and I really thought that I had. That's okay. I would tell you to skip forward, but I don't know, like, to when. That's what you get when you're just recording stuff. Like, yeah, I don't know. But, you know, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Mind you, all of this stuff is all brought to you guys by the fact that I have Patreon supporters and YouTube members. Without their help, I wouldn't have all the string for this. So thank you guys very much. I haven't been including the whole Patreon and YouTube thing into these videos because most of them were recorded so far in advance. Actually, this is actually rather, you know, way ahead of time. But yeah, I didn't want to like give kudos to people who've already dropped out or, you know, no longer with the channel. So yeah, but still, nonetheless, without these guys helping me out, I wouldn't be able to do all this. So thank you guys so much. Almost to the end of this one. So this whole X thing is about done. I know you can't see it because the strings are hanging way down, but they're getting really, really short. And that's sort of, I don't know, it stresses me when the strings are so short that I feel like it's going to end up being like, you know, not make it, but it makes it just fine. So that's pretty cool. And the reds come together. Dun, 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 dun. So yeah, actually I did the whole thing. Go figure. All right, so here it is. I've turned it the other way around, and I'm basically going to try to knot these things together. Nice little square knot. And I take those 2 strings and I put it up, and I go to the next 2 strings. And because the pattern is the way the pattern is, it's always the same 2 colors that are getting put together. And again, I'm trying to sandwich it like a taco. and I'm kind of going over like the first knot, go just a little bit past it to get the second knot. So that way I'm holding the first strings in place. So I'm really trying to make it so that way this thing is durable and usable. You can see I didn't do the first two red strings, and I don't do the last two blue strings. And those are the ones that are going to get needled and sewn into the other corners. But yeah, I basically do this step right here to all 8 of these corner pieces. So yeah, I'm trying to make sure that this is just as thorough as possible. I want you guys to be able to do this. I don't want to have to come back and do another video and be like, okay, so apparently I didn't explain. Right. So then get some scissors, and these are my crazy sharp scissors, and just trim off those, being sure to not cut the other 4 strings that are left to sew things with. Ta-da. Okay. So now I'm taking the 2 red strings and pulling them through right at the corner. And then in that little space there, and this is where it gets really dodgy. I have to bring the blue through. And like I said, I didn't want to have to try to thread the needle each time, so I did the loop, which worked on some of the spaces, but some of the other ones were so tight, it was kind of hard. And you can see I'm struggling with the fact, yeah, my leaning so far in. I'm struggling with the fact of trying to keep those from coming back out, because gravity, I've got it pinned on my board so the camera can see it, but gravity keeps wanting things to fall out, and I'm like struggling to kind of keep it all together. So now that I pulled them all through, turn it over to the other side, and then, yeah, clips and everything else. It was this whole part here is sort of tedious. So take 1 red, tie it to the blue, nice square knot, pull in nice and tight, not too tight. You don't want it to bunch and get weird. And then tie the other side, and just square knots. Nothing too crazy there. Just tie them together. And so now you see we've got 1 going into the other corner. So now taking the other side and going into the other side's corner. So far we took 1 4 and put it into the 1. So now I'm going back the other way, and I go all the way around all 8, that just like that. Yeah, it is a little bit easier to just thread the needle than to try to fight with the knot. Maybe if I used a skinnier string, I mean, I used catgut because it's so nice and strong. But yeah, trying to fight my way to pull that through. Yeah, you can see I'm really struggling with this, right? And I tried to make the smallest knot possible. There we go. And then flip it around to the other side and tie them off. So yeah, eight times of doing that. And eventually it gets harder, because as you're coming around, you're slowly closing everything off. Like, it starts out where everything is sort of, you can see everything pretty easily. But as you come around, by the time you get to the last one, it's really sort of dodgy. Mind you, I have the benefit of knowing like exactly where I'm going to put the needle through each time, right? Because I discovered really early on, like the first one, how that was going to go. So yeah, this part just, and like I said, gravity wants to pull this whole thing apart all the time. So you'll see, like, I just kind of put clips on, and oh, and I had to worry about making sure out of the blue ones how to make sure that I got the correct one, because if you get them flipped, it's gonna knot together funny. So the one that's on the right hand side has to stay to the right hand side. The one on the left hand side has to stay on the left hand side. So yeah, just kind of take your time, be cautious, and this whole thing will come together just fine. Wow, really leaned in there, didn't I? Yeah, I was at this point definitely struggling to try to get it to happen. Yeah. And then turn it around the other way. And knotting it together. So you can kind of see at this point here, right? It's already starting to make the ball shape. And you can kind of see why I had to do like the last of it inside out, right? Because I have to be there to be able to tie those knots together. It sort of made more sense that way. But yeah, it just kind of, with every time I join it, it's just a little bit more fiddly, a little more. But see, you can see the three together. Here comes the fourth one. You can see it starting to take shape. So hopefully this is making sense to you guys, right? I really hope to see some people put these things together and see what you guys come up with, because it's a cool design. It really, I really honestly think that this is something that would be kind of fun to have, because again, it's an ornament that if it falls off the tree or anything, it's not going to get destroyed. It's not going to just shatter like some of the ornaments do. So I think that's kind of neat. Yeah, you can see like the loop of string, sort of a good idea, but it really would have been a whole lot easier if the string was somehow didn't have like a big knot in it, because that big knot does not want to slide through there very well. But it's a whole lot easier than trying to thread the needle. Although I think I have a needle threader, I just don't know what happened to it, and I couldn't find it, so I just kind of did this the way I did. Oh, and at some point here, it dawns on me to just start snipping them as I go along, because all those loose ends inside start making it kind of hard to tell what I'm doing. So at some point I just go through with the scissors and trim them all down. So. And so yeah, it's kind of just alternating every other one. Yeah. I think this is the last one that I was able to actually do on camera, because of the fact that when I got to the last ones, there was nothing left to clip. And so I had to actually like have it on the desk, and the camera, I couldn't really get it situated to where you could see what I was doing. So kind of sorry about that. Hopefully you kind of figured out how this all works and that you can do that kind of there. So yeah, this is pretty much where it ends. So this is the actual finished thing, and I love it. I think it's really turned out super well. Like I said, you can kind of make out the fact that there's like the bumps from the way it was pinched, but it makes it so that way this is so much smoother. Like the other one that we did that had as many strings coming around, it kind of rounded out like a pumpkin, but this one turned out really pretty neat. So yeah, that's how I made it, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, as always, don't get your strings in a bunch.